Tēnā tātou. Kia ora e te whānau. If we could make our way back to our tables, please. We'll make a start. You're all good, man. Ka pai. Tēnā hoki tātou. Ko te tūmanako e pai ana te kai. I hope everyone had a good lunch. Shout outs to our host today, Mr. Scott O'Donnell, HWR Group. Thank you very much. Ko te mana o te whare, ara, ko te mana o te tangata, ko te mana o te kai. Koina te mea nui. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get on to our next session, Session 3 in your agenda, Global Context to Local Practice, Decarbonisation and Green Energy. Decarbonisation and Green Energy, the hydrogen opportunity. Now, we've got a short video from Mr. Dr. Andrew Forrest of Fortescue Group. So it's about 12 minutes long, I understand. So we're going to start playing that now. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask, please write them down on your free notepads. That's what you get today, free notepads. Please use them wisely. And we'll get into that right now. Nō reira, e te iwi, e te whānau, ladies and gentlemen, a video from Mr. Dr. Andrew Forrest from Fortescue Group.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I would like to thank my great friend Tiffany for the invitation to speak to you at Ngā Tahu Science, Green Energy and Innovation at Wānanga. I'm speaking today from London, but this week I've been in Glasgow, Scotland at COP26. This week, business leaders, politicians, scientists and many other people gathered at COP26 to kind of figure out how we as a planet are going to stop the world warming more than 1.5 degrees. This is critical, ladies and gentlemen. We must do it. Myself and my Fortescue Future Industries team attended the conference to tell the world that a zero emissions future is achievable, not by 2050, but by years, maybe a decade or two earlier, if we adopt practical, implementable, simple green hydrogen. At COP26, we emphasized practical, we emphasized effective, and we emphasized implementable solution called green hydrogen to all global warming. It's a gas, and you make it using nothing more than water and renewable electricity. That's the key. That's electricity made using the wind or the gravity from the water, you give the water back, or the sun, or heat from the earth, and the power of course, rivers. Enough sun power falls on just 300 by 300 square kilometres of the Pilbara every single day, my home country near my own hometown. To replace the world's total energy production, we just have to capture that energy. We have to capture the energy in New Zealand by taking the gravity from the water, giving the water back, but not wasting all that beautiful energy of gravity and water. And this is zero emissions, zero pollution, and unlike fossil fuel, almost every country, and particularly beautiful New Zealand, can make it. Every country has some form of renewable energy. They can all look after themselves. You don't have to go to Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or anywhere else. Make your energy at home. That's my message. Indeed, the one thing that is very clear to me is that whether or not a country will be a success in this great green industrial revolution future, the future of every economy in the world, is not whether they are fortunate in their natural resources like in the fossil fuel age, where if you didn't have the oil, you didn't have the gas, you didn't have the coal, well, we'll talk to someone else. Not now. Every country has the resources. But what will make the difference is, are they just as rich in their leadership? What will show as winners won't be riches in ground, it'll be riches in leadership. That's who will take the future of the green industry revolution, which has already started. So this week at COP26 and more broadly this month, we have made many announcements. We're building a global green energy manufacturing centre in Gladstone, Queensland, not far from here. It will double the world's electrolyser capacity and electrolysers the technology needed to make green hydrogen from water, not from anything else, just water. We are assessing if we can convert a major ammonia and fertiliser factory to run on green hydrogen near Brisbane, the closest Australian city to here, right in Brisbane. That factory is going to go broke with a fossil fuel future in front of it. But with green hydrogen, we think it's going to have a huge future, and that's the microcosm of the whole world. Switching industry and switching power and switching fuel to 100% green won't just save our planet, it can grow our economy and bring down costs. So, we've reached an agreement with construction giant JCB in the UK. They've said we need to take 1.5 million tonnes per year by 2030, or even more. But we have to get it to them. We have many other agreements like this in the pipeline, which will decarbonise aviation, particularly large commercial jets, and it will decarbonise shipping. In fact, we announced this week that we'll build the world's first green ammonia powered ship by the end of next year, less than a year from now. So ladies and gentlemen, we have been busy, but I will never forget that one of the things Fortescue Future Industries most important to us that we negotiated, that we're so proud of, was our partnership with Ngā Tahu. Ngā Tahu is an important relationship to us and dear to my heart. Why? Because it's on shared values. And one of the shared values for both Ngā Tahu and Fortescue is family. At Fortescue, this means that we care about our colleagues and our community as family members, and we want the best for them. Another is tūhonga, or expertise. At Fortescue, we refer to this as generating ideas. How can we learn and bring our skills, and how can we learn from your skills with our family, with our colleagues, you and I together, to find great new ways of doing things. These come together across Fortescue and across Ngā Tahu as a shared belief in the potential of the Great Southland to be at the forefront of the green energy industrial revolution. FFI has a strong commitment. We know this green energy revolution is coming, and we want all of your beautiful country to be very much part of it. Our aim is to create solutions to the hardest to decarbonise but biggest industrial sectors such as power generation from coal, such as rail, such as shipping, such as trucking, and of course now, such as aviation. We're scoping large-scale renewable energy and hydrogen projects in the USA, Canada, Africa, Central Asia, Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, and of course our favourites, Australia and New Zealand. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, from New Zealand out, we're developing projects everywhere. Our focus is global, but our attention and our community is local. And you know, global decarbonisation and hydrogen ambitions can only be started locally, here at home, here in New Zealand. New Zealand, green hydrogen is not just a product for export. It can help meet all your country's own decarbonisation ambitions. It can help meet everything your industry, your cars, your planes, your ships, your factories can possibly do and possibly need. And if we make it here at home, it also gives you full energy security, full energy independence, energy sovereignty for New Zealand. Of course, electrification can do much, but it can't do everything. About 50% at least can only be met with renewable electricity. But the rest, we need to get to the hard to abate industries and sectors. And only hydrogen can do that. It has the most critical role. Electrifying everything is easy, provided that electricity comes from green resources. And that's why I say driving a Tesla in Britain or in America, that does nothing. Yes, you don't get fumes for your car, but you're plugged into a dirty coal, uranium, gas, that's the worst, grid for your electricity. And so you're just pumping up that, not pumping up what can come from green hydrogen. Let's just look at diesel. If we can fully replace diesel in trucks and marine fuels, the dirtiest fuels of them all, can be fully replaced by products we make here in New Zealand. Green hydrogen to green ammonia, produced and exported right here in New Zealand. And hydrogen into green ammonia is proven. And from there, we make green fertilizer to support the decarbonisation of New Zealand's magnificent farming and the entire food chain produced here in New Zealand. But to make green hydrogen work and to make it cost effective, you need scale. Of course, you need the technology, and that technology comes with serious and risk-taking innovation. And we have that. FFI is proud of the risks it has taken to produce great innovations, and we're doing it with really great New Zealanders who are helping FFI and the New Zealand family innovate and come up with the best technology and the best solutions, because we can do it right here. And of course, New Zealand has a strong and proud history of innovation, from the egg beater to the world's first flying machine, even before the Wright brothers. And that history continues today with incredible research and development efforts across your country. Fortescue brings scale to that and lessons from global innovation. We need a partnership between FFI and New Zealand, between the two of us, to encourage a local vision in developing all these elements required for New Zealand's success in the great green industrial revolution, which, as you know, has already started. Producing hydrogen and supporting new hydrogen-related industries will also need new skills, and that's why we're keen to work with Ngāi Tahu to develop vocational training centres where people can not only learn the skills but be fully prepared for that first day at work, where they know they're going to be productive from their first day on. That upskilling we have in train, and with New Zealand, we're so keen to make it happen. We do this today in the Pilbara, in my home country, Australia, and we'd like to bring all the lessons learnt from the 2 decades of trial and error, so we just have trial and success in New Zealand. We bring you the local knowledge and the shared values I've spoken of to together make this work in Southland too. FFI is very much looking forward to walking alongside our good friends at Ngāi Tahu on this exciting journey to a clean, green, hydrogen-powered future. And it's not some distant point. We've already started. The green industry revolution is underway. Let's make New Zealand, the great Southland, with FFI, a huge part of that wonderful future. Tēnā katoa.
Koina te kōrero mai te rangatira Dr. Andrew Forrest. Aha ko te hapa o te reo, he whakaaro pai. Whakaaro nunui ki a mātou. So, though his enunciation wasn't the greatest, it came with good intent. So we acknowledge that. Nō reira. On the line with us, we've got a Felicity Underhill from Fortescue, I believe. Come in, hello. Here we go. Kia ora. We can't hear. Oh, yeah, we've got some sound. Kia ora, Felicity, tēnā koe, nau mai, hara mai. Welcome to the Murihiku Regeneration Conference, Wānanga. Now, I understand you're going to be answering some questions, is that right?
That's right.
Get ready.
Thank you, I am ready. And kia ora koutou, and kia ora, very special kia ora to my dad, my lovely dad, who is with you there today as well.
Oh.
He'll be very proud.
He's just said you've been a wonderful daughter.
I bet that's what he
with
said.
some difficult attributes. Ka pai. Ka pai. And this is what we were saying earlier about that intergenerational leadership from parent to child. Okay, so we've got our beautiful Tūhoi princess running around, Tony Biddle. She's running around with a microphone. Don't look at her feet, she's not wearing shoes. Has anyone got a question? Oh, no. Good practice. No? We've all got the answers. Love it.
Why did you leave me,
Oh. Yeah, we'll save that for counselling there, Tim. It's probably at another hui. Anyway, no questions?
No problem. If you have any later, if you think of any later, feel free to...
No, we've got one for Felicity. We've got one.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Eric. My question would be, and Dr. Forrest mentioned ammonia-powered ships. So in a power source, is the nitrogen released as pure nitrogen or as nitrous oxide, which is a greenhouse gas? I just need a bit of information around that.
Yeah, no, really important that we don't have any unintended consequences of additional greenhouse gases from this. And that's why we've been starting with a blend, and that's why we're also not running ammonia ships today. The really important thing is that we're able to capture and manage the emissions from the ammonia-powered engines and not be releasing nitrous oxide. The way we're seeing it working in power generation is we're injecting the ammonia into a deoxygenated chamber, which means that the emissions are only nitrogen, and we're not emitting any NOx. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, but that's core to our prototyping.
Does that answer your question, Kapai? Yep. Yeah, run, Tony. You're doing well.
Kia ora Felicity, ko Richard Blakey Takawingawa, hei ka mahi aha te whare Wānanga o Otago. I'm from the University of Otago. Thanks very much for being here, and to Andrew for his talk. Sounds like we've got technology that's ready to go. We've got industries that might be absorptive. What are there other roadblocks? Are there any particular policy or other implementation roadblocks to make this happen in that short time frame?
Yeah, wonderful question. And I think there are probably two challenges. There's the supply chain challenge as well as policy and support for uptake. So from a supply chain perspective, the things that we're doing haven't been done at this scale before. And so we're having to go all the way back through the supply chain and solve every challenge, making sure that we've got actually enough of equipment all the way through. We're able to access the electrolyzers, the ammonia plants at a scale, pipes, cabling, all of these things, transformers. We're going to start putting some serious pressure on supply chains globally. And so we're looking to start manufacturing a lot of those. And we'll be looking to place manufacturing close to where we're actually going to be producing the hydrogen as well. The second piece that you mentioned around policy, for us, it's really important that that policy supports the uptake by users of green hydrogen, rather than necessarily needing to support, the big, large-scale producers. We will produce hydrogen at the lowest cost that we can, but for customers and companies who run fleets of trucks, for example, or for industry, what is the help that they need to feel confident in making the switch, to help them start to replace their fleets as they come up to a normal fleet regeneration. Those are the sorts of areas where we're looking for support. I think the last one, and it's something that we really pushed in COP this year, is globally giving customers transparency about the type of hydrogen that they're buying. And the hydrogen that will be produced in New Zealand will be some of the greenest in the world. We'll be really able to track back a very low carbon footprint through the supply chain. And there's work going on globally around certifying that. How do we guarantee that? Because hydrogen is also going to be made from coal. It gets made from coal and natural gas today. And there are projects out there which are planting trees to make up for the emissions when there's actually more emissions from that. So making sure that we can really certify it and know what our hydrogen is important.
Kia ora. My name's Nick. Probably got a couple of questions, and one is, can you see, one of the things I see is we're talking about decarbonisation, but continuing to still have an individual transportation system as opposed to a public. Can you scale up what you're talking about to a public transportation system, which would be a more efficient way of using energy? And the second one, just a comment, I guess, just going back to what you're talking about, is tracking, that hydrogen and green. So there is some development in other technologies involving blockchain technology, which in that space is really interesting, especially certification of carbon lockdown using, I think it's, they're called token CO2 verification systems. So you can track, and it's kind of immutable, basically. But it's worth looking into that if you haven't already. So it's just that first question around mass transport.
Well, I think hydrogen. There are different uses for hydrogen fuel cell EVs than there are battery EVs, and I think in a country like New Zealand, where you are blessed, and we are blessed with a huge amount of renewable electricity existing and potential, being able to electrify and use battery EVs wherever possible, and particularly for our own individual passenger vehicles, is going to be the way to go. Hydrogen fuel cells tend to work for the heavier vehicles, the areas where you need 24/7 coverage, so whether it's police cars or taxis, for ones where you need long range. And so it may well be more suited to some of the public transport as opposed to the private. Where we look overseas, and where we might be supplying hydrogen overseas to countries which aren't blessed with the same amount of renewable energy that New Zealand is, the hydrogen they import will be their renewable energy, and so it will make more sense for them to run hydrogen fuel cells in passenger vehicles. It's just really important to understand the context, and we're really super lucky in New Zealand with the renewable energy that we have.
Kapai, we've got time for one more question. Sorry, whānau.
Kia ora, Felicity. My name is Tibonera Regan. I'm somewhat concerned about the measure to which we can bring. I'm concerned, not worried, but focused on the measure to which we can at the same time undertake the decarbonisation of our farmlands, and it seems to me that that's what's going to be doing with a change in grass and other such. And my concern is that there's what comments you might have. I'm interested to know what comments you might have on the measure to which at the same time as we're doing this, we can make the effective conversion and transition for the fertilizer sector, particularly in the contribution it can make to the changing in grass, which I understand is actually quite simple if New Zealand will only grab it, and consequently limit the CO that's being produced in the dairy sector. Now, if that transition can be made by the involvement of balance and firms of that kind, we have a huge double win, because the biggest single source of greenhouse emissions in this country is in fact not so much from the transport sector, but as from the agricultural sector, on which we are almost completely dependent. And we're going to need both a vibrant agricultural export base and green hydrogen in the fuel sector to basically support our growing population in the most isolated developed economy on earth, which is this one. So what bringing those two factors together seems to me to be, I know the interest's there, but what's your thinking, the thinking of Fortescue on exercising that duality of outcomes?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And it's one of the reasons that I think we need to be is focused on the domestic use of the hydrogen that will be produced in Southland as it is for export. Domestically, that hydrogen is most likely to go into ammonia, which will then go into fertilizer. And so you have a decarbonized pathway to that fertilizer. The other potential use for the hydrogen that we produce is in looking at supporting and getting, farm vehicles off diesel. But your question around how do we then tackle the decarbonisation of agriculture from the emission of methane through dairy and the like. Dr. Forrest is also a farmer, and he runs cattle on his property in WA, and they've been experimenting and looking there with various grasses and seaweeds to really address and minimize the methane production. So I think the challenge is we can solve some of that with the hydrogen that we produce in Southland, the hydrogen that will then go into ammonia and into fertilizer. But you're right, there's another challenge there which needs to be managed as well, to absorb and reduce the methane emissions from industrialization of the animals that we keep in dairy and the like.
Ka pai. Thank you very much, Felicity. One last question from your father. When are you coming home to help us do this?
As soon as possible. I've got to thank him for keeping my lawns mowed. So thanks, Dad.
Felicity, thank you very much. Ngā mihi nunui ki a koe, mō tō kōrero ki a tātou i tēnei wā. So thank you very much for answering some of the tough questions today.